So a scale is both a way of dividing up the octave and of giving us a series of pitches that we're going to make music from. We've already covered major scales, and remember how these had kind of a bright, big, happy tone to them? The minor scales are the opposite. They have much more of a darker, more sad, brooding tone. There are different types of minor scales. The first that we'll talk about is the natural minor. The natural minor is a scale with no accidentals in it, so it stays true to the key signature. And just like with your major scales, how you had that formula of whole steps and half steps, where you could start at any note and get a major scale, natural minor scale is the same way. And your pattern is as follows: whole, half, whole, half, whole. So you already know 12 different key signatures, and each of these key signatures had a major scale, and each key signature also has a corresponding minor scale. So a major scale and a minor scale with the same key signature are going to be called relative. Before we get ahead of ourselves, let's listen to some of these natural minor scales. Here's an example of A minor. Here's an example of C minor. Now let's compare this with their majors. So if we compare A minor with A major, here is what A major sounds like. Kind of bright and happy. And again, here's A minor. Much more sadder and darker. Now let's talk about relative major and minor scales. So in the first example here, we have F major, and the second example we have D minor. And you can see that they both have the same key signature, and that they both use the same pitches. They're just starting and ending on different notes. And that's what makes the major scale have that bright, happy sound, is the way the other pitches relate to the tonic, as opposed to the minor scale, which has that darker, sadder sound. So there's a couple tricks we can use to figure out what the relative minor is going to be if we know what our major key is. So the first thing you can do is you can count up to the 6th degree of the scale. So let's say we really know very well what F major is. You can just count up to 6, which would be the D right here. So that means that D minor would be the natural minor scale with the same key signature as F major. Or the other way is you can count down a minor third. So if you start on your tonic F, count down a minor third, you would be on a D. And you could do that with any scale. So for example, if you're thinking about the key of C major, if you take a C and you count down a minor third, you'll be on an A. A minor is the relative minor to C major. Let's listen to what these scales sound like. So here's your F major. And here's your D minor. So we get two different emotional feelings from these scales, even though they have all of the same pitches. Also, it's important to note here that this is a D natural minor scale because there are no accidentals in it. It's staying true to the key signature. Here's another example of relative major and minor scales. So both of these scales have 3 sharps. A major here would start and end on A, and F sharp minor would start and end on F sharp. And we can see that this is the natural minor scale because it's staying true to the key signature. And there are no accidentals here. And if we want to use our formula to see the relationship, right, we can count down a minor third from the tonic of the major key. So down a minor third from an A would be an F sharp. Or if you counted up 6, you would be on an F sharp. And if we knew our minor scale really well and we wanted to find out what the relative major was, we could do the same thing in reverse. So instead of counting down the minor third, you just count up. And then you would be on an A. Or you could go down to the 6th degree of the scale. All right, let's talk about the other 2 types of minor scales that we will be covering in this class. So I already talked about natural. Now we have a harmonic minor, which is like a natural minor scale, but the 7th degree of that scale is raised a half step. And then we have the melodic minor scale, which is like the natural minor, but on the way up, we will raise the 6th and 7th degree of that scale by a half step. Coming down, we will stay within the key signature. So they'll be lowered back down a half step. Let's take a closer look at those harmonic minor scales. So our first example here is C harmonic minor. And when we label scales and key signatures, usually we just call them C minor like this, like I wouldn't write out C harmonic minor unless I was trying to label a scale itself. But I'm calling the key signature here C minor. And we can see that C harmonic minor scale has the raised 7th, right? So our key signature is telling us that this should be a B flat, but we're raising it a half step by putting a natural on it. And this scale is going to be the same going up as it is coming down. Over here with the B harmonic minor, we've raised the 7th degree by putting a sharp on the A. And then likewise with the D harmonic minor, we've raised C with a sharp. So here's what these sound like. Here's the C harmonic minor. Here's the B harmonic minor. And here's the D harmonic minor. With the melodic minor scale, we're raising the 6th and 7th degree only on the way up, and the scale will remain in the key signature on the way down. This causes it to almost sound like a major scale towards the top as we're ascending, and it sounds like the natural minor as it's going down. So here's what the C melodic minor sounds like. Here's what the B melodic minor sounds like. Try to listen for the sound of the major scale towards the top and the natural minor scale descending. And here's the D melodic minor. Now let's look at intervals that arise when we go between pitches of a harmonic minor scale. So these are called diatonic intervals because they involve notes only from the scale and no other notes. So notice how this is D minor. So each interval is starting from D. And we've included the raised 7th here because it's very common in music and it's borrowed from the harmonic minor as opposed to the natural minor. So remember when we were in a major key, we had all major intervals except for the perfects. Now we've got a minor 6 and a minor 3rd that arise. Note how perfect 4th, perfect 5th, and perfect 8th are still the same between the minor and the major keys. So this is useful if you're trying to figure out what kind of an interval you're looking at. So I can think, well, in the key of D minor, I know I have an F natural, so D to F is a minor third. As opposed to if I was in the key of D major, I would have an F sharp. So D to F sharp is a major third. On the last slide, we looked at the intervals that arise when you stack up the notes of a harmonic minor scale. And we saw that the big difference between our intervals that arise from the major scale as opposed to the minor was those minor thirds and the minor sixths that show up in the minor scale. So what this means when we go to build a triad is if you're in a minor key and you take scale degrees 1, 3, and 5 and you stack them up into a triad, you're going to get a minor triad. And that minor triad will have a minor third. So here in our example, we see G major. Remember the major triad was the major third plus a perfect fifth? Well, now in G minor, you're going to have the minor third plus a perfect fifth. Right, G minor is relative to the key of B flat major. It has the two flats, B flat and E flat. So we're going to have G, B flat, and D for our minor third and perfect fifth. Right, and then C major, which has no sharps or flats, C, E, G, would then become C, E flat, and G for a minor triad. C minor is relative to E flat major. That has 3 flats. So we're going to see that E flat appear here at the third. D major has 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. So for our major triad, we would have D, F sharp, and A. And then to make it a minor triad, we'd lower that third a half step, staying true to the key of D minor. So we would get D, F natural, and A. Here's what these triads sound like. So here's G major, G minor, and here's C major, C minor. So you can hear how the major triad is sort of bigger and happier sounding, and the minor triad is a little darker and sadder. Listen for that in this example. Here's the D major and then D minor. If we further manipulate our triads by moving around the perfect fifth, we can get augmented and diminished triads. So an augmented triad can be thought of like a major triad that has an augmented fifth, and a diminished triad is like a minor triad that has a diminished fifth. Both of these sound dissonant, but the diminished triad sounds the most dissonant. So here's an example. And then with the labeling, I just labeled it what it was, so I'm not using Roman numerals in a key signature. All right, this is a C major triad here. And then for augmented, we use the little plus sign. So there's the augmented fifth between the C and the G sharp. And here's another example. D major becomes D augmented. And then if we want to do diminished, we can think of the minor triad with the diminished fifth. So that D to the A flat is a diminished fifth. And over here, the A to the E flat is a diminished fifth. And we can mark that shorthand with a little degrees symbol. So this is a diminished triad. Here's what those sound like. So here's C major, C augmented. Here's D major, D augmented. Here's D minor, D diminished, A minor, A diminished.